Okay, guys, we are live. So for those listening at home, welcome to the Dungeon Musings YouTube channel. My name is Kevin Madison, and I will be your friendly, I guess I'm your friendly game master. I still need to come up with a name for this one. Or have I come up with a name for this yet? I don't know if I have. Coven Leader? No, that's not right. Anyway, today we are carrying on with our ongoing campaign playing Paizo Publishing's outstanding Pathfinder 2nd Edition RPG. And we are playing the ongoing campaign set in the Spires of Paridar. Yeah, Spire Master, Shadow Master, either of those probably work. Another thing we did say last time, it's the shop steward. I'm your friendly shop steward. This is our custom Coalpunk setting of occult conspiracy, magic, and murder. And what else is involved in the setting? I had a better tagline for it, and then we spent a bunch of time hanging out and chatting before the session, so my brain's a bit scrambled. It is our setting of occult conspiracy, class disparity, and industrial progress. And with me today are the stars of the Spires of Paridar campaign. I'll go the order I've got you guys on the screen here. Why don't you tell us who you are and who are you playing? First up, we've got Sean.
Hey, I am playing Golag, son of Doc. He is a orc witch detective, and he and his colleagues have a detective agency, Shadow Illuminations.
Have started with some posters for Paridar. Rather than doing like just character portraits, I'm doing some posters for each of the characters, and I believe one of the things I will need to do as a corollary to this, because of the introduction, is I'm going to have to make an advertisement for a food product called an orc witch, because every time you make the introduction, I'm an orc witch. It's going to be like the mighty-sized, bread and meat. Anyway, next up is James.
Oh, I'm Sally Dumer, an Azar KT, a monk, and quite literally the poster girl of Shadow Illuminations.
Yes. We have if you can go over to I should put it on here as well, but if you head on over to the Dungeon Musings Discord server, you can see the poster we have for Deep Sally. Also available on our Dungeon Musings Redbubble shop. Next up is Ingolf.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ingolf. I'm playing Basil Rathbone, who is an Isoki investigator. So some call them red folk, but others don't. And yeah, he wants to know more about what's going on here.
Nice. And last, but certainly not least, having come from our last session with a tragic loss, is Darren.
Yep, Darren, I'm playing Dr. Adam Erdsprung. He's got his trusty sidekick Igor. He's a created flesh warp inventor, and now homeless, it seems.
Yes. Yeah, it was we ended the last session with a bit of a surprise development. So guys, last session was part one of our most recent mystery in the Spires of Paridar. And the current mystery we're playing is called Ill Tidings at the Poverty Pond. And what happened last time, guys?
Let's see. We were interviewing new clients, right? That was last session, right? The beginning of last session.
Yep.
And the two primary. Well, let's start with since you mentioned the lake or pond rather.
Yep.
Was let's see. What was her name?
Winifred Shea.
I'll be right back.
Shea? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mrs. Shea came in to asking for our help to help find her husband, Daniel, who went missing at that pond when they were in the, it's a closed-off park, and the park closed, and so they were forced to leave without the husband who was looking for their bike, the brand-new bikes.
Yes, Winifred Shea and her husband Dan with their kids. They were at Eckert Green, also known as Poverty Pond.
We later found that there was also a halfling and a kobold that had gone missing in a very similar sort of position.
Yep. Alvy Simpson, the kobold, and Oswald Eade, the halfling.
And then Mr. Parlow of the Insurance Agencies wanted our assistance on the Blackwall merchant ship, which had returned several months before it was scheduled, abandoned, and had a very particular agenda that he wanted us to, more than hinted, wanted us to follow. He wanted us to determine that it was either an act of God, an act of subterfuge by the crew, or that we didn't know. Those were our three choices, in essence, for which we would be paid handsomely if we took the job. Which, of course, we will.
I can almost feel Golag playing with that business card in his pocket.
Well, especially now that there's a Golag Hoagie, that there's sponsorships, there's...
Exactly. What else happened last time?
Well, the doctor, he went to the morgue and found out that there had been one of the crew of the Blackwall ship that we just previously discussing had shown up with some hideous wounds. Looks like some sort of parasite or something had sort of burrowed into their skull. That was one thing they discovered, and also shown another sort of potentially a sort of flesh warp created Frankenstein type body was found. So I think that was the third one that's been found in the last couple of months.
Yes, you now have effectively someone with a more dark sense of humor might say that you've got a full set of family now because of the three stitched together corpses that you found.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So that's obviously something up in the air. As we briefly discussed at the end, obviously I returned to the clinic to find that it was on fire or virtually burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we will discuss shortly. And I think the other major thing was Basil went to the museum to meet Miss Carrington and ended up meeting someone from the Whiskers Network, I believe.
Yeah. So at least he told me so. So there was a bunch of threatening involved. So this is Henry Danielle. I think we should mention that we also found out that Sally knew about these creatures, maybe in I don't know. Yeah, the dark tide riders. So it's like I don't know, some kind of evil starfish or so. I don't know.
Yeah, sort of brain suckers.
Yeah,
Pink tentacle thing. Yeah.
So, we so this could be a kind of invasion, and we have to stop that.
So, a lot of new threads to follow, and a lot of new faces in the streets of Paridar. But I think what we'll open up with is where we left, which is let me grab everybody here. Go. Everyone's got their one hero point, and. There's the sanatorium. I've labeled... I have labeled it. Look at that. I was going to make a joke at my own expense, but nope. I actually have learned a little bit and have labeled at least 2 of the different pages. So, progress is worth noting. Here we go. So, guys, we are opening in the one of the more less affluent parts of Paridar. A coarser person might refer to it as a slum. And Dr. Ursprung, you can see that there is the, what little has come in here. That carriage that went past you before, drawn by horses, is making a valiant effort to try and put out the fires of some of the, not only your clinic, but some of the surrounding places. Cyrus, your assistant in the lab, or your kind of laborer, I guess, who helps you out, is on the ground, a blanket around his shoulders, still coughing quite badly. He has suffered some burns and most definitely has, smoke inhalation. And Betty is there as well, your nurse. And let's pick it up from there. So You can see this thing, the fire is still raging in spite of the efforts of the Paridar, fire department. You know that if this was in a more affluent part of town, there may be magics or other, engineering marvels that would be deployed to put this out, but this is as best as likely to get here. What do you say?
So first thing I'll do, I will rush over to Betty and Cyrus to check that they're okay, because his first thoughts will be to the health of his, his friends and colleagues almost.
Yeah.
So I'll double check that they're okay.
Why don't you give us a medicine check, please?
Well, what I'll do is I'll just deploy my sort of guaranteed.
Awesome.
Sort of.
So he is.
Assurance, that's it.
Yeah, he definitely has. What do you call it? Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to copy something down here quickly. He has definitely some smoke, some superficial burns, but nothing serious. His hands are the worst of it. It looks like he was trying to reach in or trying to grab something out. He can confirm, as he's looking you over, he shakes his head. He says, "I knew no good would come from that preacher." And you can see that Betty sort of shoots him a look, as if don't start, with that. You've not heard anything about any preacher.
No, I will. I'll look at the fire and I'll decide that that's not going out anytime soon, and I don't see any point in risking anyone's life or injuring anyone to sort of try and recover anything. So I'm going to start to bandage his hand, and I said I don't remember any preacher. Have we had a visitor today that I'm unaware of?
Okay, so he looks up, at Betty. She, kind of glowers at him and then says, "Well, tell him. I don't think anything. Just." And the Cyrus looks at you and he says, "Preacher, I'm sorry, Doctor. I didn't try and hold it either from you. Me and Betsy thought we had enough stuff. You had enough stuff going on. You didn't need to be hearing about him. But there's this preacher who comes in. He's not part of the church, mind. He's on his own. But he comes in and he kept saying, once or twice he came in and raised a ruckus. Betsy was able to chase him out the first time, and I had to escort him out the second time. And I tell you, sir, I escorted him out proper. Well, he says that what you was doing in here was unnatural and ungodly. And that you," and he kind of looks down, "that you were ungodly, sir." Betsy says, "He's just a sick man who... It was nothing, sir, or so we thought."
Well, he's free to have his own opinions of me, but what we're doing here is very important to the poorer people of the city.
Oh, I know, sir. That's what Betty told him before. But he said you'd burn in brimstone, sir. That's what he said. You'd burn in brimstone. And now look. And you can see the thing consumed. Why don't you give us a society check? Let's see if you've heard. The difficulty in this one's going to be a little higher just because I don't think you've turned your mind to... You've had other fish to fry. You've never heard anything about any, preacher, at least not from your patients that you've seen. You could spend a hero point if you want to re-roll, but...
Did he give a name at all?
Oh, they called him Brother Lob.
Well, I shall certainly investigate that. And did anyone witness that he was involved in this Starting of the fire.
He did it when we had a full room of patients. Scared the bejesus. He actually made 2 leave, saying that they was risking their immortal souls coming in to see you. So they burned too. Nothing but fire and brimstone, that one. That's all he promised.
But no one witnessed what started the fire.
Why don't you give us a perception check, please?
Also, wait a minute.
Oh, nice. You can tell that there's something that Cyrus isn't saying. Like he says, no, sir. I ain't see nothing.
And I'll sort of address them both. You do know that you can tell me anything, and it will go no further. You can trust me with your lives.
Why don't you give us a diplomacy check? Difficulty's not going to be super high here because these folks both like you. So you can see Cyrus sort of, looks up at Betty. Sorry, I keep wanting to say Elizabeth because when I just created the list. For those listening at home, I'll be posting a list of all the NPCs we've been meeting in the Dungeon Musings Discord server. But I made the list and I listed her as Elizabeth, quote, Betty, and gave her a last name finally. So I keep fucking thinking Elizabeth, and I keep saying Betsy instead of Betty. He looks up at Betty and then sort of, and you get the... It's almost like he doesn't want to admit something in front of her. But then he looks back at you and says, "You understand, sir? I would have got in there to get your experiment. I wanted to get in there, sir. But," and he's sort of gesturing with these bandaged hands right now. "But, sir, there was a..." Anna's trying to spoil it. "There was a goat, sir, bleating in the midst of those flames. A big black goat. Like they says, I'm not superstitious, sir, and I don't put any mind to that fool who what come in here. But I saw it, sir, in those fires, plain as I could see you here."
That is strange indeed. I have to give this more thought and see if I can find this brother Loeb. But let's get you out of here and get you something to drink and find you somewhere comfortable to rest.
Betty says, he can stay with me. I have somewhere nearby.
If you're sure.
He'll be fine there. Cyrus kind of looks up and looks at you, looks at her, says, "I'll behave."
I'm sure we have no fear of that. And then I'll go over and see if I can assist any with, potentially stopping the fire from spreading to other buildings and see if there's anyone else injured or...
Sure.
Just general help.
There's probably some way, especially with Igor's help, there's probably some way that you're able to assist with it. But it unfortunately seems to be one of those things where it goes out once it runs out of easily combustible, areas, which is no small thing. So it's almost an entire block that has just been reduced to char. So not only yours, like you picked this location partly because it was a fairly easily accessible block for people who are coming in for other services, groceries or whatever else. The whole block has been burned down as a result of this. And what you, because you're helping out too, what they say is that either, I don't know, this seems pretty typical for when there is a fire in here. That with so many places cramped in so closely and things built on top of things, that when a fire does break out, it just sort of, works. It's like a wildfire. it'll burn through the, as far until it runs out of fuel.
So I'm convinced that someone would know that, basically.
Yeah.
So whoever started it, if someone started it, they would know that it was going to cause a lot of damage and to many buildings. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else you wish to do before we transition to tomorrow? I suppose you'll have to be sleeping at...
Yeah, I will go back to the agency just to try and find somewhere to sleep. I'll probably be there for an hour or two, trying to help, and as long as it takes. But then I'll go and knock someone up at the agency.
Sure.
To try and get some lodging.
What we'll do is let's cut back to the agency, because I think where we'll find you arriving is... tell me if I've got this wrong, Ingolf, but I think that there is a light on in the office, like the place where you guys do your investigations, where all the interesting shit has happened thus far. In the office itself, there's only a single light on, but Basil is looking across, working at the table, and there are strings and whatnot. He's looking up at his big map, his conspiracy map, and you hear. Do you guys think Dr. Earthsprung probably has a key, right?
But I think I would even know his footsteps if he approaches. I mean, he's
most definitely, yeah. And if not his, then Igor's, like the wheezing of his hinges and whatnot. So your ears perk up, Basil. Tell us what's going through your mind. You just had your first encounter with Sir Henri. What is Basil making of all this?
Yeah, so I'm so many coincidences. There can't be so many coincidences. So that's a problem. That two things or three things should happen all at once, but maybe it is. So I would try to find out who this Henry Daniel is. So there should be some note of him. He must have been somewhere before. I think.
Yeah. So that's
something.
Maybe there's a big what do you call it? Like in the middle of a blank page, you've written the name Sir Henri Daniel and a question mark, and there's lines going out that have no connections to it. And you hear the creaking on the doorstep, and then the rattle of the key, the barking of the dogs in the background, the rattle of the key as it's going into the slot. What happens next, guys?
I think I will pick up the smell of smoke. I've been in fires, so it's very characteristic. So I would just look at Adam. Oh, there was a fire. What's going on?
Yeah, and he's covered in soot at this point. Igor likewise is looking a lot dirtier than he normally is. I imagine that Igor would be ideal for helping debris removal and stuff like that to try and help get the last embers out.
Yeah, and I won't worry about any of the cleanliness and stuff. That's irrelevant to me. So yeah, I'll be leaving footprints and stuff to, I'm sure Goleg's disgust, but I shall, stomp in, somber-faced, and some preacher, it seems, has taken a dislike to me and decided to burn down my clinic.
Oh,
I find myself homeless, and sort of stumps in and sits down in one of the chairs.
It's very hard, because you guys are focused on each other. I think you miss that there is a shadow that sort of flickers, and then we see upstairs go whatever you're doing, your familiar reattaches to you. Because you're aware now that Dr. Earthsprung has come here for some reason at night and there's been some mention of his clinic being burned down.
It's pretty late?
It's pretty late, yeah. It's you may be asleep at this point in bed.
I have a big easy chair in my bedroom, and I've fallen asleep with a giant book on my lap.
Is it a book with a shadowy cover?
Maybe.
Remind me too, Sean. I was going to send you that book has some rituals in it. The thing you've recovered, and I've been intending to send that to you. I just keep forgetting, or working on something else. I finally, it took us 6 months to get the list of NPCs, so hopefully I'll be a little more speedy with this. But if you're squeaky wheel,
If you want any sponsorships, Kevin, you're going to have to get this going.
We were talking before the start about a recent Canadian piece of legislation that would help with the promotion of the channel. However, the talent on this channel is almost exclusively non-Canadian, so... Oh man!
So he fell asleep. Big book kind of down on his lap, and he's got his house robe on, and he kind of wakes up, and after a minute, he hears sounds downstairs that tells him something's afoot. It's not just Sylvan, doing some last second cleanup before bed. So he makes his way to the balcony. Or is it multi-story? I guess
it is multi-story. Yeah. What I'm picturing is that when you heard the noise, that you sent your familiar down to just see what it is, because you got that link, right?
Good call.
So then it came back, so you know exactly what's happening.
Yeah. No, that's a good call. So I'm like, I kind of get myself together and clean the drool off my chin and make my way down the stairs in my house robe to see about it.
So Basil, I think you, because of your keen investigative skills, you can hear the sound of someone stirring upstairs, and from the weight, it sounds more likely that it's Golag than it is Sally. Yeah. Sally's quite a light step as well, I guess. So
yeah, try to relax a little bit. Adam, however you may, and let's wait for Golag. I'm useless in this kind of situation, I suppose.
And almost as if summoned, Golag suddenly kind of makes his way down the stairs and looks over, and you can see what you saw through your familiar, which is that Dr. Earthsprung is looking pretty messy right now, like blackened soot all over his clothes and his face and his hands. Igor looks quite filthy too. There's a moment that you spare a thought for the sectional that he's sitting on, but then you can tell that Dr. Earthsprung is quite upset. So perhaps that's not the time to bring that up.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sort of upset. So I just think about Sylvan. He needs to get on that more than I'm upset. But
there's a to-do list for Sylvan when he gets up.
Exactly. But I take in Dr. Earthsprung, and is it too late? Can we be of assistance? I assume it's too late.
The whole block has been burned to the floor.
I'm so sorry. Well, I would ask if is there anything we can do? Do you need someplace to work on people? Do you need for your staff? Are any of them hurt?
And and as he mentions that, he's already been eyeing up this room as a possible sort of clinic. and I said, I was thinking that this room would probably suffice short term, maybe for a couple of weeks until we can find something else suitable.
The one thing that would be difficult is because this neighborhood is so much is fairly far away, then the likelihood of the people who need medical help being able to make the transition.
Yeah
But
and I think Golag kind of pushes past that. The reestablishing the clinic at the office is he's pretty adept at talking with nobles and being at parties and making negotiations. So he just kind of steers right around that and says, "But your staff is taken care of.
Oh yes. Cyrus is staying with Betty. She's a good woman. She will look after him."
Sally, at this point, you sort of your eyes awaken, or your eyes open, in your tub. And you realize you must have rolled over on the side, and you can hear that there are voices elsewhere in the building. It's still dark outside, so. Oh, you're muted, James.
Yeah, I'm muted.
Yeah.
Well, with that then, Sally will sashay down in her dark blue silk kimono.
Okay.
That. But Dr. Ursprung, you look in a terrible state.
Don't
You
worry
need
about
someone-
this. And I'll just brush it off and spread it around the room a bit more.
But you'll need somewhere to stay. You can always use my room. I only use the bathroom anyway.
Oh, that's very kind, and I may take you up on that, but
You hear, we can accommodate a separate room, I believe, Master. And Sylvan is up and standing there. He's not dressed, and he's got like a stocking cap on, or he's not dressed in the normal uniform, but it seems that he has been monitoring what's been going on. Dr. Ursprung, we will prepare something immediately. He turns and heads over to one of the guest quarters for you.
Yep, and noticing the sort of awkward silence about the whole clinic thing. And I shall also speak to Dr. Raycroft and see if he can finance me some sort of clinic in a more suitable area of the city tomorrow. But we need to find out about this preacher, Brother Loeb.
I was just about to say, obviously it's of secondary concern tonight, but indeed we need to, beyond the health and wherewithal of you and yours, but yes, indeed, we need to find out what this is about, and we will start on that post haste. Yeah, you think you're confident it's this preacher then, Doctor?
There was many witnesses when you threatened to, well, try and burn me and my clinic down to the ground. So it seems, well, too much of a coincidence that a day or two later this has happened.
Adam, what is the name of this preacher? Do you know?
We've only got Brother Loeb as his name.
Brother Lob.
Oh, Lob.
Yeah.
I think that will...
Basil, you can give us a society check if you like. Yeah, see what you've heard. Or if you've got like a... Sally, you've got that... what is it? The Paridar lore?
Paradar Law, indeed. Let me get in there.
So,
Okay.
and I think I will make this subject of my investigation.
Nice to see your investigation now. We've also... Shit, I'm behind. You guys also all get a hero point, too. So if anyone wants to spend to re-roll. Those are not... I don't think you've heard with those rolls.
Yeah, I think I will re-roll.
Okay.
Come on. There should be more to this. I should know more.
We can all make a society?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go like you can too. Yeah. Nat 20?
that's
Is
more
that
like
what
it.
that is? Oh boy, 27. So Golag, you've actually heard about this. Nat 1. Well, Basil is more concerned with his mind is occupied with a certain Machiavellian Yasaki than it is on this.
Oh, right.
I think what you think is like immediately your mind goes to the Whisker Network.
Yeah.
Is this the actions of that dastardly Sir Henri?
Indeed.
But Golag, what you've actually heard about this fellow, so the church in, like, the predominant church in Paridar is the Church of the Heavenly Host, and you guys have not met. I think it's only one actual member. It's that Brother Timothy, or not Timothy, Brother Tilcott, Father Tilcott, sorry, that you have met, who helped with the untimely undeath of Major Fitzhume. He is active. He's an active member of the Church of the Heavenly Host, who works and ministers to the poor in the same district that Dr. Ursprung had his clinic. But what there is also there are foreign faiths that some people follow. There are cults that some people follow as well, and there are also these sort of like cast off heretics. At least that's what the church calls them, divergent beliefs that still use the same language and trappings and whatnot of the Church of the Heavenly Host. These kind of like street corner brimstone and devastation and apocalypse preachers. Brother Lob is one of those things. You've actually heard this because he's a big fucking troublemaker in this. These guys come and go. Either the church clamps down on them or the church, by way of the constabulary, clamps down on them. But this fellow seems to be... You've heard his name spoken as having some sway in here before. And I think, you know what? Maybe it was Skuldegg who mentioned it. The friend. You're like, your uncle who works for your father.
Oh.
Didn't he mention that at some point? Maybe your dad was investigating it, or your dad's agency was investigating it.
Lob. That name rings a bell. One of the more troublemaking apocalyptic preachers that comes through town periodically. I may have to ask about it. He may have been mentioned by a former colleague.
Yeah, when the last time you saw him at the Tuscan Tankard, you were bullshitting just about things that were going on. You could have sworn that that's what he mentioned, or at least that's a name he brought up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I may have to have a meet as soon as they're able to discuss it. I'm pretty sure it had something to do with probably my father's business. The name came up, so that's somewhere to start.
Whatever business or problem he's got with me, he's put many people out of their livelihoods and possibly their homes by this act of arson.
Golag and Basil, and Sally for that matter, there's been a few fires around town, pretty devastating ones as well, in the last 6 months.
Yes, another... well, and of course we can get into this more tomorrow when we're all focused on it, but prior fires we need to look into as another low-hanging top item on our list to see if this is isolated or whether this is something that's happened before, perhaps.
Like, fires are not unusual. It's just part of living in a big city. But I think he's on our break to go and close my blinds. Something's going on outside that is very exciting, it seems. Yeah, like, it's not unusual that there are fires in a big city like this, but specifically some similarly devastating fires that seeming they're, from what you remember about it, Golag, you don't remember there being a connection between them, or at least not reading about it, but in like 3 or maybe it's 4 separate circumstances, there's a similar thing where like a whole block burns down.
Yes, we'll find something. We'll just see whether there's a connection, and one of us should look into that tomorrow.
I don't know. It smells fishy. I'm sorry. No, Sally. I mean, it smells like a little bit wrong. This is not. There's something going on here.
But he doesn't seem to care at all about the damage he causes to others. It's not even as if he is specific. It's like casting a fishing net and just sucking up everything in the sea.
Yeah. And the other thing is, so there is someone actually trying to recreate maybe the way Adam was created. So, and this, I don't believe that this is a strange coincidence. I think this is related.
So we should investigate the other fires and see if there's any commonality.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, maybe this is best left to the morning. Beyond this, Dr. Ersprung, it sounds like Sylvan's going to have your room available quickly. And perhaps we reconvene first thing over breakfast to continue these thoughts, having slept on them a bit.
Right. Back to Bath then.
Indeed.
So you all retire. I am picturing that Basil's the last to return, sparing a last look back at that page with a single name written on it and the question mark. And that is, you finally turn off that last light and head off to bed. The next morning comes, and what are you guys into? Give me 2 seconds, because so whatever is working her up, I don't want her to keep getting worked up. I'll be right back. Hey, Goober. Hey. Okay, who are you yelling at?
I still think we should investigate the pond somehow.
Yeah, there's a long list.
Yeah, there's a long list. Yeah, no question. That's definitely on our. This is a third. We got 3 at the top anyway. We got 3. We got the pond. We've got the merchant ship from the insurance company, and we have the arson. So those, I think, are.
I think that we can be sure that the ship is probably not related to the arson, but I think that the pond incident is.
There's a good chance, I think.
Mm-hmm. Is that what the conspiracy map?
Yes.
Indicates?
You see that if you look here, so here are bodies missing, and there are bodies missing, and if you connect this line, you see that maybe someone is out there to recreate his own.
Sorry about that, guys. It's just gorgeous here today, and it's also Calgary Stampede, so there's a ton of people in from out of town and stuff. So there's just a fuck ton of people around the street. She has her treats now, and we have the blinds closed. So hopefully the
Nice.
Anna's participation in the and she's back. Hi, what's up, Goober? Will be minimal. What did I miss?
We were discussing. We had 3 things to investigate. It would seem, at least at the top, which is the merchant ship, the pond disappearance, and now the arson. And it was and Basil says that his conspiracy map indicates that there's a possibility that the pond disappearance and the arson could be connected, but we'll have to look into it further.
Okay. So we'll cut to the next morning. You guys are all, I think, Dr. Ersprung, you likely had a poor rest. You all may have had a poor rest. And Sally, you are, when you wake, you feel like you've been dreaming about something that was disquieting, but you can't remember the particulars of it. I think the recent discussion of the Dark Tide Riders, I mean, it's a, like a thing that your parents would use to scare you as a kid. So maybe the like having that on your mind maybe is that, but you can't remember any of the particulars about it. Maybe it's something else, or it was maybe something you ate before bed, right? So who is the first? I think Golag, you're usually the first one up, aren't you?
He's an early riser.
Yeah.
He's got his routine, and wants to take his time, get properly dressed, and bark at Sylvan a little bit. It's important.
Okay. So slowly, one by one, our stalwart illuminators join the breakfast table. And what is the plan for today?
He's probably got that paper, whatever the Paridar.
The
press.
Paridar Times is the one that.
Okay.
Yeah, the Paridar Times is what Mrs. Is it Collingwood? No, Mrs.
Carrington.
Annabelle Carrington.
Carrington, that's something. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So that's what Carrington writes for. There is also the Globe, but I mean, like, who the fuck reads the Globe? Jeez. Maybe you've got that hidden underneath, just for
It's professional, so he reads both because it's got to be thorough.
The Globe does have the the racing information in it. I don't know how much of a gambler Golag is, but the racing forms are definitely superior in the Globe than they are in the Times.
Yeah, he's got to at least scan it. So he's got those laid out before him as usual. Eating and asking Sylvan unnecessary things about the household.
Okay, and it's of course
waits
yes,
for people
sir.
to file in.
No, sir.
Yeah.
So maybe I should visit the Miss Carrington and ask for fires and missing people, and also what's going on with this Brother Lope. And I don't know. So maybe you can follow another trace, or we could go there together if you would like to.
Well, we haven't actually been to the park yet either. I think Sally was willing to maybe take a short dip if necessary.
I am going to, and this may not take long because I'm not sure when he can meet, but I'm at least going to make the appointment this morning with a former colleague about this lob, and maybe even meet with him this morning if he's able. But if not, at least to make an appointment at his earliest
Your
convenience.
relationship with Skeldug is such that like he'll absolutely make time for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will meet with him this morning, then at least briefly to see what he knows about this lob, and to get that going, because he may need to look into it. He may know something immediately. He may need to look into it. Who knows? And get that started while this morning, fresh. That will be what I'm about first thing, I think. And I can join you in progress wherever you all are, depending on how long my appointment takes with him.
Yeah, and I'll definitely have to see Dr. Rayclough at some time to just inform him of what's happened, because he's obviously quite heavily involved in the sponsorship of the clinic and stuff, to see whether he's able to get money from insurance and whether he'd be able to sort out a new clinic in the future, and just start the ball rolling with that side of it, and just informing him for decency, if nothing else.
Okay. So Basil's going to meet with Mrs. Carrington, and Dr. Earthsprung's going to meet with Dr. Raycroft. Golag meeting with Skeldug. Sally, what's in your agenda for today?
I think it's the idea that I might go for a swim in the less disgusting bits of the harbour and where the bodies had been found, and see if we can find any of these. Although I'm not sure I want to find them, but...
Yeah, for those the Darktide Riders.
We could reconvene in the afternoon, perhaps, to check the pond. What about that? That once we have had some time to cover our individual threads in the morning, that we reconvene at, say, 2 p.m. to either here or at the pond itself to do a survey there. Sound good?
Good.
All right.
Okay. Then, who would like to go first?
I'm good to go with Skeldug if he's good to go.
Okay. Yeah, so you guys finish up your breakfast, and then one by one, you guys get up and make your way out for the day to head off towards your various appointments. The first thing, I think, and you're meeting at the Tuscan Tankard again, I take it?
Yeah.
Golag?
Yeah.
Sure, let me bring you guys over there. And while I'm at it, I'm going to label the thing here. Yeah, there we go. This is our general all-purpose pub, because I think we've used this for the Union pub when you guys were investigating that the death of that Union organizer. So you arrive there, and it's probably like 10 o'clock ish. Like, it's probably quite early in the day, right?
Yeah.
And you can see outside, and while your father definitely projects the same kind of cultured and sophisticated, type that you are, Skeldug definitely still tries to keep some of that working class, orc stuff. So his shirt sleeves are rolled way up against the, even in the early morning, you can feel it's going to be a hot day today. He's got his waistcoat on, but he's got, there's no sign of his jacket if he has one. And his little bowler hat is sort of set at a bit of a jaunty angle as he's smoking a cigarette. He sees you walk up. Bit early for this, isn't it?
Doug, yes, it is. I appreciate you responding so quickly. Of course, and I give him a pat on the, a slap on the arm, and and wave to the bartender.
Anything for you, my boy. Well, you guys are outside. He meets you outside.
Oh, okay.
So you go inside, and like the contrast. Even it's smoggy and whatnot here, but there still is, it's summertime and it's daytime, so there is light that's coming through. But going from that to inside, it's fortunate that you guys have dark vision because it is very selective in its use of lighting in here. So you make your way over, and it seems that Skeldug is known quite well here because when he walks over, he just holds up, 2 meaty fingers, pours 2 pints for you, and he leans in. It's not that I don't mind saying an early morning pint, but what is that I can help you with?
Lob. Brother Lob. Was it you that mentioned that name to me at some point recently?
Would you give us a perception check, please?
No. Let's see.
Ooh. His face definitely falls. Like, he tries to hide it behind his usual, jovial nature he has with you. He has the way we've been playing it thus far, and tell me if this was not your impression, but that it's like the uncle that's always happy to see you kind of thing, and that's the same sort of jovial thing he tries to maintain, but there is a bit of a stutter that you catch. And he's like,
and I know that...
Lob, did I mention that before? Oops.
And I know that he's got that he's straddling, professional and personal, always, to some extent, to some, there's a little bit of delicacy with my father. Everyone knows the score here, what's going on. So I know that he has to navigate that maybe a bit. And I'm pretty sure it was you, Skeldug. I'm going to rib him a little bit about it since he looks uncomfortable. It's perfect. And I dive in.
So he shoots you a look, when you say that, just for a moment where, without expressing it in words, it is a look of caution. Not anger, not fear, just caution. And he says, perhaps we should get a booth. And
very well.
He picks up the pint, nods at the bartender. Thank you, barkeep. Makes your way over to the booth. He does it in that way where he's intentionally kind of sauntering, intentionally trying to walk casually. But you can see he's carrying more tension in his shoulders than he likely intends to make across. He is the, I'm picturing he's got kind of a natural confidence, Paul Newman kind of style. So you can tell that there's something that is bothering him. He heads over, sits down, looks over, across the pub in a way that that your father trained him to do and that you were trained to do, to make sure he's precisely aware of everyone who may have heard what you guys were talking about and who might hear what you will be talking about.
Did he seem to be uncomfortable prior to the mentioning of the name or just since the name?
Not at all. It's almost like you could see it. If it was not for your impressive investigative skills and you knowing him so well, someone else may think nothing of it, but it's to your eyes, it's like he was hit with a bucket of cold water at the mention of that.
Well, I will tell you, Skeldug, what game is maybe akin to poker in Paridar, Kevin? Would you think?
We can say, let's see here. Why don't we call it Seaman's Bluff? That is the word seaman in it, so probably not that.
Your Seaman's Bluff
Sailor's
face is
Bluff. Why don't we call it Sailor's Bluff?
Okay.
We're back to Bellend again, aren't we?
Exactly.
Yeah, the
I'm glad you're.
sponsorships.
As soon as I said it, I'm like, God damn it! I know we have a lot of British viewers and British players. So
Yeah, the sponsorships just jumped ship again.
the Canadian government's like, fuck this. We can find a better representative of our national identity than this clown. So yes, Sailor's Bluff.
So your Sailor's Bluff face is no better than it ever has been, Skulldug.
He leans.
His name has caused us both trouble, I think.
He, you know, my boy, I'm always looking for what's best for you.
Well,
We were, I tell you, there was an investigation involving that name, and we were given direction to not only ignore and not pursue the investigation any further, but to destroy copies of all investigative materials made. And you know that one of the reasons why your father is in the position he is in is that you never destroy anything that could potentially be used. Any knowledge can potentially be used to improve your position at some point. Your father's not in the position he's in only because he's good at his job, and because people suddenly wanted an orc running the most important detective agency in the entire country. He's doing it because he's a power broker as well. So that says an awful lot about the willingness. Like, normally everything gets surrendered and then Lord knows what happens to it. But you've never known your dad to waste any evidence that was collected in the course of any investigation.
Well, that sounds ominous, Skulldug.
I don't know what, and I don't know what the reasons were for it, but your father, was unambiguous in his instruction as to what was to happen to those materials.
Well, I will tell you that. And how long ago was
this? Would have been sometime like around Yule when you were talking to him. So about 6 months or so ago.
Okay. Well, I will tell you, Skeldug, that his brother Lob is our primary suspect for the arsonist.
He puts his hand up. Drop it. I don't think if your dad was told, think of what must be at play if your dad walked away from this.
Well, but unfortunately, this Lob has made a direct attack on my staff. What would my father do if this Lob made a direct attack on you?
He gets a look on his face, and he says, you may not want to hear it, boy, but you got so much of your dad in you. I can tell you that we were hired on account of a fire that burned down some posh folks' houses. There was some talk about this brother Lob. Think, what was his name? Nolan Lob. He was a member of the church, was thrown out because of a bit of an obsession with the end of the world. It's good for church-going folk to be scared a bit. It does nothing good to tell them that it's hopeless. And that's the message that that got Lob tossed out. But it seems he wouldn't. He found a new practice.
Was it your belief that this lob is responsible?
From what I recall, there were, at the time, there was a fire involving from some stables elsewhere in town, and there was some talk that he may have been connected to that too. I can't tell you why. We were instructed to look no further, but from what we had, I can't tell you why we would have been told. Who would have been... Do you think they're targeting you? Is that it, or was your...
At least well, we're not sure yet. It's early days. It's just last night.
Was that fire in Poor Town?
Yes. One of my staff had a clinic
The doctor. I can understand your interest in it then.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you what I was told, which is to take it no further. And I can tell you that the other two fires that we were looking into, we couldn't, as far as we could not see a connection between them apart from this lob.
Who was the client? Was it the owner of the...
He gives you a look like, I'm going to a certain length, but I ain't going that far.
Whoever the client was, is it your belief that who called it off was probably not the client?
All I know is that I've yet to, in the years that I've known your father, I've yet to run into anyone for whom he would destroy all evidence of the investigation.
Did the investigation involve much interaction with the church?
Only at the early stages to figure out who this brother Lob was and what connection he may have. They didn't seem to like him all that much. They sent someone else to fill his spot, though.
At the church that he was previously at?
He was in that neighborhood where your doctor's clinic was.
Do you have a recommendation of who we should talk to at the church? About Lob.
At the church, I can't give you those. We have ways of opening doors that you cannot. But the local preacher, if you check with him, he may be able to. I understand he inherited a bit of a mess with his congregation.
And finally, did you ever talk to this Lob yourself?
You know how it is. Know your prey before you confront. We hadn't reached that. We hadn't reached the stage to confront yet. But if he's behind this fire, I would be very careful.
Are you willing to give me the flavor of his connections? Do you think, is it nobility, the church? Is it... No? Any...
Drinks finished the last dregs of his pint. no better way to start the day.
Very well.
And he spares once again a look, and you can tell he's doing it subtly, but you know the training, because you're going to do the same when you get up. But he does a cautious look over at the bar once again, stands up. I'd say I'd send the best to your father, but...
And Golag shrugs and says, I always hope he's doing well. And I cheer, I hold up my tankard to cheers.
And if I haven't said, too, that bit with the, what was it, the end of order? Your case. The one in the papers? Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
I do believe your father threw the paper across the room.
Well, at least he's paying attention.
You know your dad. Always.
Yeah.
Then,
yes.
Golag, stay safe, my boy.
And you.
Always. Adjusts his bowler hat once again, and he heads out. And as he's walking by, he just gestures without looking, Barcape, and then heads out the Tuscan tankard, leaving you to contemplate his advice. So, first off, everyone gets a hero point. And then, who wants to go next?
Do you want to go, Basil?
Okay, yeah, I just wanted not to give myself too much prominence, but then again, yes, I want to.
So where do you think you're going to meet with Mrs. Carrington? Are you going to go by the offices of the Paridar Times?
I think we should meet somewhere. I don't know. There might be a park or somewhere. I don't know. Like
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah, so you send up you send a message up with a runner in her office. So you're sitting at a park, and you can see that there are, it's if it's earlier in the day, there are some, nannies who have brought their kids out to the park. There are kites flying above. This is near her office, would be near more of the affluent area. So it's going to be a much nicer park than the what you are likely to, see at Poverty Pond. And then Mrs. I do have a handout for her, so let's refresh our memory here. So Mrs. Carrington, of course, looks like this. And well played. Sally says, you aren't sitting in the limelight before you have been as quiet as a mouse. Mrs. Carrington walks over and sits down next to you, archetypical spy movie style, and looking around. Master Rathbone, it has been a while. Always pleasant to hear from you. Do you have word for me?
Yeah, let me put it this way. There are a couple of cases, and I'm wondering why I read very little about those in your newspaper.
Indeed. Perhaps it's because my sources have been reluctant to share such interesting insights. Like, for instance, if a doctor's clinic, the only one to service a neighborhood for the destitute, burned down. If I had a friend who had direct connection to such a doctor, I would have thought that a friend would have very quickly put me in touch with them. But
yes,
I see you're here alone, Master Rathbone.
Let me. So I'm actually. I was hoping that we could maybe help our dear Dr. Earthsprung by organizing some kind of charity event to help him rebuild this clinic. Something like that.
She looks over at you and she says, the culture beat is really not my area.
Yeah.
When can I meet with Dr. Earthsprung?
Yeah, just wait. You will see the connection. Maybe it's even bigger than that. Do you know how many
Her one eyebrow arcs way up. Go on.
Do you know how many strange fires happened in the last few months in the city. And I would say 6 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there have 5, in fact.
Five. Yeah.
I'm aware that they're nearly on a monthly basis at this point. Master Rathbone, what more do you know of that?
Yeah, do you know, there seems to be a strange preacher of the apocalypse always near these fires. His name is Brother Loeb. You ever heard of him?
Brother Lob?
Yeah, Nolan Loeb, yeah.
I was not aware of that. And you can see, like, without taking her eyes off of you, her notepad is out, and she's beginning to scribble down some things.
So that is very, very strange. I mean, I'm not
5 fires. There was, I'm aware that there was the fire for your, where your doctor's clinic was. There was a stable that burned down. There were those houses in Harrington Hill, and there was a warehouse at the start of the year, was there not, that burned down? And then what she's left out of the list that you're aware of is that there was a park, another park that actually burned down.
So there was also the park. You know about the park?
She looks, yes. And you think all of these are connected?
Let me put it this way. They are connected by the sheer presence of someone. I don't know whether he's just someone who's making use of those things or whether he's really responsible or something like that. Everything is possible. But right now, I'm just worried that someone wants maybe to advance the coming of the apocalypse in a way, you know?
You fear that there is an apocalyptic connection to these fires?
I think that maybe not the apocalypse, but someone might think that the best way to start an apocalypse is just to get the city to burn.
I've not heard anything, but your ear is closer to the ground. I will follow up on those.
Yeah, but a much smaller thing, maybe a coincidence, but maybe not. Have you heard about people going missing in parks recently?
Is this with the fire in the park?
No, this is just, it seems that it's not connected. So it seems like, let me put it this way, persons of lower classes got missing in parks and no one really cares.
In Eckert Green, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. I had heard, but that's been going on for years now.
Years? I only know about recent months.
Oh,
so
yes. This is part of the legend. Do you know? Before Eckert Green, before that region, Eckert, when he was, before his most recent turn to charity, before the park was built, that pond was there. That pond is as old as the entire park itself. Paridar Commons was not something that was developed, it was something preserved. And what is poverty? Eckert Green is simply the part of Paridar Commons or Paridar Commons that no one could seem to tame.
Okay, you say that this might be some older being there?
Oh, yes. That is the oldest and most, he simply picked the part of Paridar Commons that no one wanted, slapped his name on it. Did you really think he offered it up to the poor out of charity? Whatever happened to him this past Yule, His heart was certainly not in a charitable mood at any point elsewise in his lifetime.
Yeah, I think he saw some ghost of the future, but that's not the point here. So, okay, yeah, well, we will look at that as well. But then there's a third strange coincidence, and that is making me very mad right now because everything is happening all at once. So you see that there was this ship you wrote about, which came into the harbor without
the Blackwall,
the crew on board. Yeah.
Yes.
So it might be that one of the crewmen was found dead yesterday. And
She's once again
would...
furiously scribbling down.
Yeah,
I thought that the crew was missing.
No, so maybe you could have a talk with someone at the morgue, and you would find out that a certain...
So one thing you would know, remember that the way that Dr. Earthsprung was exposed to that was through Dr. Green, who is part of the 9th Medical Corps.
Yeah. So you mean I would know that she would make it disappear?
They'll probably deny.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but she could always go there. I mean, it's not that I'm telling her lies, but it might be that they will deny that his body was found, and it was the body of I wrote it somewhere down here. Clem Gilbert. Yeah. Clem Gilbert. So you could at least allude to rumors that the body of a certain Clem Gilbert was found.
Very well. I will look into it.
More than enough information. So I will just talk to Adam when he's ready to talk to you about this.
I would say if you do intend to hold a fundraiser, there is nothing like attention to... I can assure you our readers have deep pockets. It would benefit any such activities to have a story profiling Dr. Earthsprung and his benevolent works.
I see that you are always one step ahead of me in thinking about these things. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Those things, but you, as always, Master Rathbone, seem to be a step ahead of me in many of the other areas. I had not made the connection between the fires, so, as they say, we make a good team.
Yeah, maybe.
Anything else I should be aware of?
Nothing I know for certain right now, and the rest is just, I don't know if it would help. No, I think we have to find out more about the connection with the ship before I can give you more details there.
Any you could. I am, though, more interested in if you have information about the Green in particular. I can tell you that for years of disappearances, since it was turned over, Eckert turned it over. No one will care unless we can demonstrate that whatever the reason is, it is a threat to those who live, those who do not have to frequent the pond.
I see. Okay. Thank you so much.
And to you. Someone brought a dog to the park.
Yeah.
Then...
Dogs don't like me.
I will be in touch, Basil. Yeah, there's like a Great Dane that kind of snaps at you as you walking by. There's a rich guy who looks at the two of you and then carries on walking his great big dog. Then, unless there is anything further you wish to speak to Mrs. Carrington about, she will leave, and we will... Yeah. Okay, so once again, my timing, my math is pretty fucking awful. So we're at our mid-session. Why don't we take our mid-session break now, guys? Refresh our beverages, take our break, and then we'll come back and see what Ms. Dumaire and Dr. Earthsprung get up to. Okay, so for those listening at home, we'll be back momentarily.
I feel our group is a little bit stretched at the moment on what to do.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit of a slow thinker today, so that's. No, I mean we have options, but we have 3 seemingly unrelated problems.
What takes priority?
Yeah. I would really love if this turns out to be some kind of so this whole fire and apocalypse story is just a front for, I don't know, some person trying to sell houses or so on. So far,
take over cheap land or something.
Some real estate scam. That would just be great.
That would have been a good question to ask, if the land, after being destroyed, had been purchased or sold, or.
Yeah, but I think I can't. So I was thinking that Annabelle wouldn't know that. But I think that maybe Golak could find out.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just making another conspiracy within the conspiracy.
Perfect. Love it. I should have been taking notes.
Yeah.
All right. So if there's nothing further with Mrs. Carrington, then I suppose we're going to either Dr. Ursprung or Ms. Dumer. Who would like to go next?
Shall I go? I'm not sure if this is a dead end, this one, so it may be remarkably short.
Okay.
So I think I'm going off into the heart. But no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I see. Like, how are you picturing this approaching, or how are you picturing approaching this?
We know where the body washed up, correct?
Yes.
So I'm thinking that I would know. Well, if I don't know, I will investigate where the currents would come from.
That reminds me, I actually found a city. I'm not going to say what it is because I'm going to work from it as for a map for Paridar. But I found a city that has two rivers that meet. That is also on a coast, which turns out pretty hard to fucking find. So.
Oh.
Yeah. That has 2 rivers that also is on a coast. It is tricky to find where rivers will meet up on the coastline. But in this, the reason I want to mention is because the harbor itself is actually, there are like berms that have been built up to avoid ocean swells and things like that, and to provide some stability in the harbor. So the harbor itself is beyond being just a natural sort of, area. It's also sort of, and it's fairly big, but it is separated by like a fairly thin strip of land that provides also some mitigation for the currents and whatnot coming in from the ocean. The fact that the body was found in the harbor suggests that there was it's something that would have been either happened in the harbor or it was a very, very lucky current that brought it in.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily wasted effort on your part.
So I think I'll go along with my minimalist outfit.
Okay.
Which should be the silk cape and covering, but not so much underneath.
Okay.
So that I can be free to swim. Now, the one thing I do bring, of course, is my special glove, nonetheless.
Okay. Then you get yourself to part of the harbor. Where this body was found is still, like, most of the harbor is still fairly active, but you are also quite good at stealth. So if you're trying to get yourself in without anyone noticing, why don't you give us a stealth check?
Yep.
Let's see how. Nat 20. Amazing. So nobody sees you. I don't think anyone even, like, you can picture that there's a bunch of like laborers that are working on the dock, and it's the the one guy turns and then you walk, to time it perfectly to walk past. Another one is coming up behind, so you stop behind a crate. He walks past, and then you're able to slip past him. So you get yourself down to the harbor with no one being aware that you were anywhere ever near there. And with a quick, adjustment of your cape, you slip down into the water without making this. There's maybe one stevedore who like puts down a thing and he stops and looks around because he thinks he heard something, fall in the water, and he's like, it's nothing, and then goes back to work. So we cut to you being under the surface. Tell us about how you're thinking. What's your strategy here? Are you just going to kind of poke around and see if anything comes up, or are you doing like a grid search?
I'm thinking, nonetheless, I'm trying to figure out, once I'm in the water near the site,
Yep.
I'm trying to think, how could it possibly have drifted there?
Sure.
So sure, if it's not an ocean current then, but it must have got in the water from somewhere. So I'll be sticking my head out, looking around to see if I can see a possible site that the body could have gone in.
One of the benefits of being right below, and also having been, you're, and I'm picturing as well too, for whatever lack of light there is. I can't remember. Do you have dark vision, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I can see
okay.
in low light anyway.
Oh, low light vision. So actually, you would light up your little things. Low light just gives you extended. It extends the distance into gloom that you can see.
Yeah, I'm dark vision.
Dark vision. Then dark vision, you can see in perfect blackness. You don't need light in order to see. So.
Oh, sorry.
I get it. Okay.
I'll keep pressing it. Okay.
Ken, did I mention I have dark vision? I also have dark vision. There's some dark vision here too. So what you do is, as you get below, in addition to being able to see, I think you feel currents in the same way that, like, on land you feel breezes. So you can get a sense of like where it might be carrying you, and begin swimming in the opposite direction from it. This carries you out to deeper into the harbor. There's typical, the typical kind of aquatic life you would expect down here. There's mollusks and some fish and whatnot, and generally they're like scavengers that are feeding off of whatever has sort of fallen off in here. You startle one or two fish who aren't expecting to see an Azerketi, zooming around under the water. But you follow this back to near where the entrance is, and quite deep down in the what do you call it? Deep down into the harbor, like sort of near its deepest reaches. And there's just a ton of detritus down here. Like this, the Paridar must have been a active port for hundreds, if not 1,000 years. And so there's just tons of anchors and things that have fallen off boats, and ships that sank and whatever. That is all covers the harbor floor. But as you're looking around, what is your bonus to perception again? I know you upped that, I think, recently as well.
Yeah, let me see where. Sorry, on the wrong tab. 6.
6, okay. So you manage to backtrack a little bit, and you get into an area where you're fairly certain that something might have. This might be a strong point for where this person dropped off, and one of the ways that you might think it might be very hard to find new stuff. Like to find anything on a floor like that. But one of the benefits is that the grime and whatnot that seems to accumulate on older surfaces, or things that have fallen down years ago or centuries ago or whatever. With someone with dark vision, it's much easier to see something that is comparatively bright or whatever. And what you can see down there is that there are a couple of buttons. Seem to be attached to a piece of fabric.
So let me swim along there and have a gander.
So if you get down there, you have to be, you're mindful enough of how to properly pick stuff up in water to not disrupt it or like send it flying away. You scoop down and pick this stuff up, and it seems to have settled in quite nicely with some, in a nook and a cranny, and that's the reason it hasn't been carried off by the tide. And the buttons are actually, it looks like it's a piece of a sleeve that has like ragged tears on it as if it was torn off of something. And the buttons aren't anything remarkable. They're bright, like as if they come off of a coat, and the dark fabric, the dark woolen fabric that they're attached to, you'd guess is probably, it would be from a sailor's coat, the kind of thing that would keep the cold and damp out quite well.
Okay,
you
so
can give us a society check. The likelihood of success here is not great, but you might recognize... No. So you don't know. There is a symbol on the buttons, but, I mean... you know, what this specific, like, anchor and something else, you know, look is, who knows?
Well, I'll take that with me.
Okay.
And try and check my bearings as to where this is sitting so I can get back to it again. See if there's any sort of points
Sure.
of reference.
You certainly, I think, with how well you rolled on it, you can definitely get that. And then... So one of the interesting things about being underwater as well, for if you live, you know, deep down below, you can pick up when something or someone is nearby in a way that you just can't on the surface. Maybe one of the reasons why you're much more comfortable underwater and why you sleep in it is because when there's disturbance in water, it's much easier to feel it. You have a much better sense of where you are and what's around you. In the sense that if something moves, you know, there's a wake that comes from that. In the air, it's so thin that you never feel that. So unless someone's like waving their hand right near your face, you won't feel them do that. But you can when you're paying attention to it and you're sensitive enough underwater. And you felt that something was moving near you that is probably at least man-sized. Much bigger than any of the little, you know, the aquatic life that you've been down here. You're looking around and you know, you still can make out the apocalyptic surface of the under here with all the broken, you know, the hull, the skeletal hulls of the ship, the, you know, detritus and whatnot that's dropped down. You can't see anything, but you definitely felt something move nearby.
So I'll prepare my my claw, but
Check.
then I will try and circle round towards this, not head straight for it, but do a loop round to try and come up behind whatever
Sure.
it is.
Why don't you give us a stealth check, please?
Oh, I think I
You
will.
hero point that?
I'll hero point that. Oh, there's
That
one of
one,
my
there we
classic
go.
hero points. Yep. Who did I kill with
I
that?
think you rolled 20. So what you find is you do your best to sort of to, you know, loop your way around. You like swim along at the nape of the harbor floor, and you come around to where you think that this thing might have been, or the region. And once again, like, your eyes are wide and you can see there's nothing. You've pulled the light of the motes on your body down so they're not emitting any light whatsoever, so as to get the best surprise you can. But there's no one you see. And as you start slowly drifting your way forward, trying to get closer up on where they are, you can see that there is what looks like it may have at some point been a mast maybe, or something else, but what it is a long, you know, kind of thing sticking out of the ground. There's grime and, you know, mud and whatnot that's accumulated on top of this thing. And what you can see is there are impressions of humanoid hands deep in it. Fairly recent, like they're crisp enough to be recent, as if someone pushed themselves off of it. But there is no other sign of any living thing down here.
Well, there's something down there, so that's not totally reassuring. That says unliving things.
If you compare your hands to it, it seems like an adult human male's hands, bigger than your own.
Right.
You look around and you feel like this thing must have just been there.
Can I somehow try and trace it? Anything with the sound? Because that travels a long way underwater.
Yeah, you can give us a perception check.
Ooh.
You want a hero point
Let's
then?
try one hero point again.
Okay. You think you can hear the sound of... It's like... it's the sound of... Not like cavitation, but it's the wake of when something moves quickly underwater and away. A fleeing fish, for instance, would make a sound like this, but this is much bigger than a fish.
Cavitate.
Yeah. And then you hear sort of a fish go by. I've had fucking cavitation has been in my head. I saw a video about a, what is it called? A mantis shrimp last week, and super cavitation has been in my head for a week straight. So thank you for giving me the excuse to use the word cavitation.
Well, my name comes from submarines, so I'm very conscious of cavitation. Right, I then will pursue.
You get the sense, if you do try and pursue, that this thing is outpacing you.
Ooh. Then he's speedy.
Yeah.
Then in that case, I'll take
I should say, what you are able to pick up from it, though, is that the pace, it seems to go in one direction, and then it heads out past the harbor, past the breaks, leading out into the ocean itself. Mm-hmm. If you follow as far as the actual sort of entrance to the harbor, you can tell that this thing is going, whatever this was, it's making its way out to sea.
Well, with that then, I will take my buttons. I'll go back and connect my cape.
Okay. And we'll let you carry forward with the roll. So once again, you get yourself up. You're able to kind of clamber, because you got amazing athletics as well. Clamber up the pole up to the harbor and throw yourself up onto the platform. Grab your cape, and then what do we see as you leave the platform with buttons in tow?
Just a little... I'll just... Without a sound, I'm just slipping from packing case to packing case.
Yeah.
Out and around behind everyone's backs, and out I go.
Perfect.
Okay. Vault over the wall.
Nice. So you leap over, and no one is any the wiser that you have been in this area. So... Our last meeting before noon is, unless there's anything else you want to do, Sally?
Nope.
Okay.
That's good.
So, Dr. Earthsprung, where would you like to meet? Dr. Raycroft will, of course, invite you to his house.
Yeah, I think that would be the most suitable.
Okay. So,
private matters.
As a reminder of what Dr. Raycroft looks like. So, when you meet Dr. Raycroft, you remember you met him in that sort of arboreum before for tea and whatnot. That's where he meets you once again. But unlike before, you're not... you would be greeted at the door by his servant once again, brings you through. Have you done any... I guess you've had a chance to clean yourself up a little bit. You realize that all your clothes have burned down as well, too, apart from maybe your fancy dress stuff that you left at the office.
Yeah, it will be just looking scruffier than ever. It'll have his usual clothes on, but it'll just be still what's left of the soot and stuff that he couldn't get off easily.
So you get the look up from the servant of kind of like, Doctor, please. However, Dr. Raycroft greets you with a great deal more... his greeting is a great deal more welcoming. He comes over and embraces you, and he says, Adam, I read this morning. I am so sorry. Was anyone hurt? They did not say in the paper.
Not that I'm aware of. We were lucky on that front.
Good.
I do find myself once again at your doorstep with somewhat a begging bowl. I'm looking for your help.
There is no need to beg. We will... I had already given some thought to what, if you are intent on reopening the clinic, I have some thoughts as to where we can go and individuals to follow up with to properly stock the clinic as well, too. Have you spoken to Elizabeth? Is she intending on... she will stay?
I did not pose the question, but I'm fairly confident that they'd be happy to continue.
Good. Then it is a tragedy, but one that he sort of, as if he just suddenly realizes it too, your experiments too. I will see. Did any of the samples survive?
Alas, not. It is months of work that has literally gone up in smoke.
Well, he sort of thinks and looks over at you. He says, "You don't... Is it paranoid of me to think that it might be your research that was targeted?"
I did think that at first, but I do not know this. I don't know if you heard the name, but the name Brother Nolan Lobb was mentioned.
Nolan Lobb. I don't know, brother. He's not of the church, is he?
He calls himself a preacher, or people call him a preacher, but he visited my clinic a day or two before this event, and
so you think he's
he
some
did
fanatic?
not want to trouble me. Well, it seems that this is not the first time that he's potentially been connected to some sort of arson or fire.
One thing this has presented is, I've been thinking, and perhaps, when it's the saying, putting all the eggs in one basket may be a poor choice for us and may be putting your clinic at risk. What would you say to, if I was to arrange a separate laboratory for you to conduct our research, separate and apart from your clinic? I know you enjoyed the secrecy afforded by the clinic, but if there is a chance that this was a way of targeting your research, perhaps this might avoid any further impact on your physician's duties.
I mean, the research is the most important thing, so if there's a way that I can continue that and it'll be safer, then I'm certainly interested. But there did seem to be some sort of target towards myself. I know I am a constructed creature, and most people will not look on me fondly, and this preacher seems to be one of those people. You
don't think there's anything connected to those bodies we found?
Well, that's the other possibility, that they're targeting these unfortunates, and he sees me as one of them.
That is... this is more your colleagues' world, I think, than mine. So I will focus on what I can assist with. We will find you a new home for your clinic. I will speak to a real... I'm trying to think what the Victorian equivalent of a realtor is. Land agent, I guess, would be. I will speak to my land agent, and we will find something appropriate. If we need to let out a house and knock out walls, we will do that. And I will give consideration to where we can relocate your research. Do you need protection?
Cool. I do not. No, I do not fear for my own life. My friends and colleagues at the agency are quite capable of looking after ourselves. I'm more concerned of where the clinic will be located. I do not want more innocents to be caught up in this if anything unfortunate should happen again in the future. I believe the whole block was burned to the ground.
And you think the clinic was the specific target?
Yes, but they don't seem to care about anyone that's caught up in this. Unless it's something to do with money. I don't know what will happen to this disused ground and space. Will it be sold off cheap?
When I speak to my land agent, I could inquire.
Is it possible that they're destroying these places to make these less desirable and cheaper to purchase the land, reuse it? It seems unlikely in such a lower part of the city.
No, but Poor Town was not always what it was. A forward-thinking arsonist could perhaps see something different to come from it. I'll inquire of my land agent and see. I hate to think such evil thoughts of, but such are the times we live in, I suppose. I will send word. Where are you staying? And he sort of, begins to get up like, if you must, my home is open to you, Adam.
I am at the investigators' offices at the moment.
And does that suit
short
you?
Term. It will do short term, but I am very keen to get back to the cheaper side of town. I know there are people that need me.
I will see my land agent in person. We will not have the clinic closed long, I assure you.
Well, I find myself in your debt once again.
There is no debt with what you give to the city. This is the least we can do. A paltry way of saying thanks. Then, if you've burned down, then you must stay for lunch. At the least.
I have a short amount of time.
We shall make it quick then. And he sort of snaps. Sort of the mood that Raycroft is definitely, one of your stalwart allies too, but a man in his position gets used to people listening to what he asks for, even when he asks for it really nicely. So you sort of know that if you make an issue of it, he's going to fight you. So when you guys all meet up in the afternoon, you may be the last one to attend on account of his imposed hospitality.
Yeah, I do feel obliged to stay a decent amount of time, but I will try and hurry up.
Sure. So you, where are you guys planning on meeting up in the afternoon? Are you planning on meeting up at Eckert Green, or are you meeting up elsewhere, like back at the office and then heading over? What do you think?
Both were discussed. Let's see. We didn't actually come to at least, the players didn't.
I thought we said the pond, but...
Okay, let's do that.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That sounds fine. Yeah, either one would do.
So, let's see here. We'll go in the order that we had. So, Golag, you were the first one to have your scene with, Skeldeg. I think you arrive at Eckert Green. So you arrive at the park first, taking a carriage down there. You wander your way through, and it's a lovely day. As far as Paridar goes, this is the sort of the nicest part. One of the things that you, since this is your first time here, you can notice, I mentioned that there are amongst Paridar, around the two rivers, there are some massive ancient spires that give the setting its name. The spires were built by some ancient hand in a different form from what anyone else. They tower way above anything else, and you can see them from almost anywhere in Paridar when the smog is not so bad. Or the smoke, I should say, is not so bad. One of the things that's of interest in the park is that there are smaller versions of it, almost like obelisks, standing stones made in the same exotic design that the towering spires are. but of a smaller scale, and with language written on it that not only seems to defeat any of the, or be beyond any of the research of the wisest, at Collingwood University, but also it defies any kind of magical translation. No one knows what these words are. It's just some of the elder folk from lost in the mists of Paridar's history. So these smaller ones sort of mark the distance around Paridar Common, and you can see that it looks like there is yet another group of students who are here studying it, trying to work on translations and whatnot from the university, that you notice as you're going in. And you can also see that while you're waiting near the entrance to the Eckhart Green or Poverty Pond, there is a toppled one of these things. And I'm not sure, do you think you've ever been to this pond before?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too. Not unless it was for a case.
Okay, so yeah. So you're here, and maybe you're standing before where the reason you would see this, because where it has been toppled, there is a base of the same, the same design, and it's on that base that they've chose to build, or the statue for Elwood Eckhart. And as a reminder of what Elwood T. Eckhart looked like before his recent change of heart, that is the face of the man.
I think that's one of the first faces you showed us in Paridar.
It is, yeah. Yeah. So you're standing looking up at this thing, and you realize, this is a little off kilter. The statue itself seems to not be level. And one thing you would know, having lived in Paridar, one of the other things with these spires is that they seem to be impervious to any kind of harm. One of the reasons why they are still standing in the face of the progress, quote unquote progress in Paridar, is that no one can affect these things either. The fact that this is a toppled one, they may have just taken the opportunity to plant this on there and make it fit as best they can. But you can see that he's just a little askew. It's only a degree or two, and if you hadn't been carefully looking at it, so you look. I think it's this, when you're looking at this from the skewed angle, that Basil, you walk up and you can see him inspecting. You see Golag. And there is, there are a bunch of people in, as much as this place is wild and untamed in comparison to the rest of Paridar Common, Poverty Pond still has tons of people out in it when it's nice. So there are tons of lower class, or working class, I should say, people who are populating the park. Their families are in there. Sweeties meeting up with their other sweeties are in the park, exchanging long glances or enjoying a meal at a picnic. It's a pleasant enough place. You would never think that there were people going missing here. But Basil, you make your way across. There are a fair amount of Yasaki in here as well too. As much as you may think.
Anyone I recognize? No.
Maybe one or two faces from the neighborhood. You have a great eye for faces, so. You sort of nod, and they nod back at you. And Golag is looking up at the statue. What's going through Golag's mind? That was one of the first cases you worked on with the Shadow Illuminations Detective Agency.
I'm probably reminded of how unpleasant the man looks. First of all.
And so different from the man you met.
Yes. And think of how, maybe a moment of retrospect of, how long we've come and, steps, cases of the past.
You're flicking that in a card in your pocket.
Yeah, right. Still flicking the card. Right.
Basil, you walk up as Golag's looking up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sean. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Is the toppled obelisk, is it still there?
It's still there.
Yeah.
Toppled behind. It's sort of away from the pond.
So you're not thinking of climbing this, Golag?
I am not. Without turning, he chuckles and No.
And you see, Goatleg's got his head kind of to the side a little bit, and Basil, as your investigator class ability too. You look, and it's not even.
It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign.
Do we know how long, perhaps? So Golag is going to take a look around the base to see if he can ascertain, if he doesn't already know, how long the statue's been here.
I think I said it was around 40 years.
Oh, long time.
Yeah,
okay, so the statue's been here a long time.
Statue's been here quite a long time. This was not a recent development. It was just it was a tax thing that Eckhart could get his name slapped on. Other than like all the different subsidiaries for Eckhart Industrial. And he has the impression you guys have had is that it has he's just not kept up the place. He put his name on it, put a fence up, and then just left it for the poor. But if what Mrs. Carrington said is true, then this place has always been like this. It's been impossible to maintain for groundskeeping. It always goes wild.
Yeah, so it seems like he is some older evil kind of thing on the way, and this has been for years and years.
For 40 years, you think?
Yeah, that might be the case. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure of our ability to topple this one and put the obelisk back on as a test. That would be controversial, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't think we should do that right now.
No, not today. And he fixes his tie and then and I assume it's been off kilter this whole time, don't you think?
I'm not sure, and I will try to find out. But another thing, so maybe, just maybe, if you talk to your friendly contacts at how were they called, Assurance or so, if you talk to them again, maybe ask them if they realize that something is wrong with the way the money flows right now, with all these fires and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could probably tell them that we're trying to eliminate connections and make sure that they're not that the events aren't connected. The city, that the atrocities, as it were, are not connected. I think we could.
No, I'm just thinking that maybe. So I was told that there have been fires also in the quarters of more posh people. Mm-hmm. So they would have insurance, and I'm pretty sure that the company would know something about it, and they would have someone investigate those.
Yes.
Things.
No, it's a good suggestion. We will. Kevin, remind me. We did tell him we took the job, right? I mean, I know we had the big meeting at the beginning, and then
I don't know if you confirm. You definitely gave the impression that was the case, but I don't think you guys have necessarily told him, because there was some discussion about the exclusivity clause.
Oh yeah.
You guys were talking that over.
Yes. Right. Yeah,
I think we could just send a messenger that we are taking up the case, but we have to finish the other cases as well.
Right. We discussed that, and the potential attack on one of our staff, is another loophole we can use.
Now, I think the next to arrive is probably Sally. So, have you changed, or are you just sort of keeping your shrift around you?
No, I think I will have headed back to get a little bit more respectably attired.
Okay. So Sally makes her way in, and you can see there is the still, I think by comparison to having been in the ocean once again, looking at this still stagnant, freshwater pond. It's like you mentioned last time, the prospect of going in there. No, it's like, yeah, it just does not seem pleasant. I'm trying to think of an equivalently unpleasant thing to be. Yeah. It's not like a cold
Yes,
shower. It's not shocking. It's just...
I'm not swimming in one of your indoor commodes either. So you can forget that one, Golag.
Okay. So you can see that Golag and Basil are both standing before this statue of Elwood Eckhart, who seems to be glaring down at the two of them. And they both had their heads cocked to the side. Sally, I think, is able to arrive without you guys noticing. Even you, Basil. What do you say, Sally?
I see you're investigating a puddle again. I was out in the deep blue sea, and I did come across one oddity in that harbour. And I share the buttons and a bit of cloth. It appears to be of someone's greatcoat, and there was something else in there, something very unusual. Something larger than a man, incredibly fast, and I suspect it detected me and headed out to sea.
As large as a man.
As large as.
Yeah.
But unusually fast.
So, an aquatic creature, probably.
Oh, very much.
Yes.
More like a fish or more like an octopus?
I don't know. About human-sized, but it sure moved. I would guess at that speed it's some sort of fish, one would think.
And you think it was focused at least on the area of the sleeve, the area on the bottom of the...
I think it detected me when I found the sleeve, so it could be coincidence. But I suspect there's more to it than that. That's not your average harbour animal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so...
But these are unusual buttons, and they look like they haven't been in the sea very long. So maybe there's some connection with that, with our little mystery. But I don't recognise the pattern on the...
Yeah, I could investigate if you hand it over to me. I just have
Please
a look.
go for it. We don't tend to go for buttons very much.
Yeah.
So go ahead and give us a society check, please. This is going to be a little...
Yes.
a little more challenging.
We both...
Yeah, you guys both can take a look.
Yeah, I will share with you.
21. So if you're assisting, that's a success because you need a 20 to add.
Okay.
So Basil, you're getting a... Holy smokes, yeah. So Basil, you recognize this stuff. You know, your button collection that you insisted on keeping to know all the different manufacturers, it's paid off now.
Yeah.
This is actually it is one of the like bulk suppliers for ships. If you're a quartermaster and you're going to be outfitting your entire crew with the cold weather things or whatnot, there are like outfitters that do that. This is something made by one such outlier or one such provisioner. And you need not make any further rolls to tell that the same provisioner, this is exactly what the buttons, this isn't that you can't tell that this is definitely one of the buttons from the crew of the Blackwall, but it is exactly the type of button that is attached by the provisioner for the Blackwall.
So there were a number of... Wait, there was one. There was one corpse?
It's a torn... there was one corpse that was brought to Dr. Earthsprung's attention by Dr. Green. Mm-hmm. This seems to have been torn off of either part of the coat or perhaps part of the arm. Whatever other fabric may have been attached has probably got separated by the tides. But this is something relatively fresh.
We'll have to talk to Dr. Earthsprung about it to see if we can connect or eliminate this sleeve.
Speaking of Dr. Earthsprung, you can see he's making his way, and there's a little, in spite of the the horrific events of the last 24 hours too, he seems to have a little bit lighter of a step. The company of Dr. Raycroft often has a bit of a heartening effect for him. And the cucumber sandwiches, my goodness. So, Dr. Ursprung, you are making your way across with accompanied by Igor, and all of your allies seem to have accumulated beneath this scowling bronze statue. And you, I think, Dr. Ursprung, you worked on the case of Dr. The Harrow Haunts of Yule, right? Yep. So you're aware of, you recognize it's Elwood Eckhart himself scowling down at them.
I would just do I hear him approach?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I would just, in order to talk to him before he gets to us, just run towards him, maybe.
Okay. So you scamper over towards him. Both Golag and Sally, you kind of look at one another like, is he happier to see him than us? So what happens as you race over? Basil?
Yeah. So, Adam, just for a quick word, I don't think you want to talk about this publicly, but maybe. So I
You have 6 strains of herpes from your various body parts. I'm terribly sorry.
No. So I had a talk with Annabelle Carrington of the Times, and she suggested that we could have a fundraising for your clinic. And so if you wanted to talk to her, there would be a chance that you could you could get good money from all the readers of the Times, but you have to talk to her and maybe share the story of all the good you did in your clinic.
I'm happy to promote anything to do with the clinic. The more people that know of it and visit, the better for the people of the poor side of the city. So I'd happily speak to her, and we could put that money towards the people that have lost property and livelihoods.
Yeah, that as well. So yeah, just so you know, I think she's very, very eager to support your case, and we just need to arrange that.
Well, I thank you for thinking of us in this time of need for the poorer amongst us.
So I think that Golag and Sally are waiting for us, but I wanted to not to make this more public than it needs to be.
I'm probably still chatting with Sally about her ocean dip.
Yeah. And maybe Sally, I don't know if you mentioned the handprints in the mud.
Yes.
Perhaps you mentioned that to Golag. Golag, what do you make of that?
Then we're chatting about that. We'd be chatting about that.
We were.
So as you're walking over, you can see, like, from a distance, you see, like, Golag and Sally are, like...
comparing hands, yeah.
And then as you make your way over, Golag repeats maybe what Sally said. Like, there was her pursuer, or whoever she was following her. Human hands underwater. And you know the difference between human and Azerketi hands as well. So it's definitely not Azerketi, it's human hands.
A good reminder makes my assumption that it was a fish possibly wrong, but leaves me amazed that a human could swim that fast.
Oh, definitely.
And did you see any signs of the Dark Tide Riders?
Oh, no.
Could they be involved? Would they be able to change a human in any way? To act more like a fish?
I will say, am I right in saying, no, they control the humans, but it's not like
the things that you faced involving Captain Hunter and the missing crew of the Harpy. That involved, like, the one that you faced was, and the two that you found in the Harpy itself, or at least the traces you found, those were physically transformed. Remember, they were their whole bodies were changed to be non-human by whatever the experience was. The Dark Tide Riders don't work that way. They are almost like imagine if a remora could take control of a shark. That's closer to what they are. Parasitic, but reliant on the host. At least that's the stories.
I'll ask Sally if she could tell if this being had any mechanical assistance. Would she have been able to tell, like if it used something to achieve those speeds?
She didn't hear like the noisiness of the mechanisms that people make use of in like some of the like the corkscrew propellers and stuff like that in the most advanced ships. That is definitely something you would hear, the whine of metal on metal as it's trying to, even with oil, lubricating the whatever it is, the shaft. That's not what you heard at all. You heard something natural.
Yes, quite curious. What depth would you say, Sally, that this all took, the hands and the coat sleeve?
Tell me if I'm wrong, but probably 20, 30 feet.
Yeah, deepest part of the harbor for sure.
Aren't very, yeah.
And how many hands would you say you saw? Like 100 or like 10?
Oh, 200.
No, all she saw as a recent thing, or at least what was on that that fallen mast with the mud on it, it was a pair of hands, as if something pushed itself off. That's how an Azarketti would launch itself as well. If you're on something, why not take advantage of it to push yourself off to get extra speed?
Interesting. And you weren't able to figure whether they were. You thought the prints were probably fresh. Did you know? Were you? Yeah. Huh.
Do you think we would be able to lay some sort of trap or net or something to try and catch someone who might return, or creature that might return?
But it seemed to me that it was pretty. It was both fast and aware, so you'd have to get up early to catch it.
Sally doesn't mention that she actually hit a bell while trying to sneak up on it. That nat one.
Right.
It was super aware, guys.
Yeah.
But I could probably lurk there and see if I can observe it later, but I'm not sure that things like nets and things like that is going to be particularly effective. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, not to spoil the fun in the ocean, but we are having problems right here, right now, and I think we should investigate here as well before we...
The pond.
You get all excited about this little puddle.
Yes. Because many people are dying here for years, maybe up to 40 years, as far as we managed to find out.
Yeah, we were noting, Dr. Ursprung, that this statue is curiously a little off, since it has been put on a pedestal of old that the obelisk sat on.
Yeah, you look at it, and I mean, you got an engineer's eye, so yeah, it's like maybe 3 degrees askew.
And is there any sign of damage that would have caused that? Like someone had sort of attacked it on?
No, nothing you can see. Yeah, and you do a careful inspection of it, and no damage you can see. It seems to have, like, whatever mortaring and whatnot put this thing in place the first time. Seems to be where it is. It could have been like slapdash construction of it. You would know well enough that the spires themselves, like all the spires that are found in Paridar, they don't shift. They are perfectly straight.
And what about the ground that it sits on? Is there any movement or anything that looks like?
This one, you could put a level to it. I imagine that in Igor you have your engineering tools as well, so you could get like a level out and check if you like. The base is perfectly straight. The same that if you were to take it to any one of the other smaller spires in the park, or to any of the larger spires outside, you would find the exact same thing. These are precisely stationed to be straight up and down. And when you put it on the statue, it's the stuff on top that seems to be slightly off.
Just to make sure, I mean, there should be some weird stories around the town, what those spires are, and something like if the
tons
spires
of
fall
ideas.
down.
But there's so many weird, like there's also the
Yes.
white blossoms of Paridar that people just sort of like they at this point everyone just accepts that that's just sort of what happens in Paridar.
Okay. So, but there's no, I don't know. We don't know about the prophecy that the town will fall once the last column has fallen or something like that.
I think that it is an easy thing for people to glom onto because it's a thing that you're constantly reminded of, especially in the summertime when people are out. You can always see these white spires looking down.
So Golag's looking at the pond and says out loud, "Boy, I wonder if there's any of those handprints down there."
How deep is it? I'll go and have a look. Can you even see the bottom of the pond, or is it?
Nah, it's just one of those like freshwater ponds where it's just the mud and whatnot on the it just fills up the particulates. So like you could put your hand down to where your elbow is, and you lose track of where your hand is.
And there's not a I don't know if lifeguards are a thing in Paridar.
No, and this is not the kind of pond that you swim in either. This is like at best okay. If there are some like crappy makeshift rafts, it's a fairly big pond. Like it's a large enough thing so that it's 150 feet across at some of the larger places. So you're not like, and the length of the thing is quite long as well. The reason that this was given over to the poor is, I mean, partly it's not a very pleasant pond. And the surrounding area is just, like this is more akin to like a campsite that's been hacked out of the woods than it is a sculpted and carefully grounds kept park, as the rest of Paridar Common is.
So if we think that there's something in the pond, maybe we could just lure it out. I mean, like, for instance, using some sonic device to just annoy it in the pond.
Yeah. Should we not investigate the edge and see if there's any signs of any strange handprints, footprints?
While you guys are standing at the edge, you realize, Dr. Sprung, that Igor is back at the what do you call it? At the statue, and he has a level set up against it.
What, he's doing that on his own?
On his own.
He's irritated by that 3 degrees.
Yeah, I'll walk over and ask him what he's doing.
So he has the level up, and he looks, sort of turns towards you and gestures at like the point where you're seeing the difference. Would you give us a crafting check, please? So you're looking at this, and you sort of have to blink once or twice, and you realize, like there's some kind of optical illusion or something. It is straight up and down. What you were looking at before, so when you take it in your hand, it looks like, if it seems as if it's askew the way your eyes are seeing it, but when he's holding it and you're looking at it and carefully have an eye on it, like it's not askew. It's been built perfectly straight up and down. And you take a step back and look at it, and like it for sure is, from your eyes looking at it with a naked eye, it's definitely off kilter, just a hair. But using Igor's measurements on it, it is perfectly up and down, so it doesn't make sense.
Perhaps the statue is crooked?
Is there something... sort of change in your vision? Is this? I sort of feel around it as well. And sort of touch it where it looks.
It's really unnerving because you've got two things. Like your eyes, you are as confident as you can, just because of your vast experience with, you always rely on measuring stuff when you're constructing things or whatever, but you also do generally get a sense of like, it's like looking at a picture and knowing when it's straight if you've got the eye for it. You can get the eye for it and then put your level on and say, okay, I'm right. Your eye is telling you this thing is off by about 3 degrees. Your tools, when Igor is operating it, are showing it this statue is perfectly straight up and down.
How close is the statue to the pond?
It is about maybe 50 or 60 feet back from it.
Well, I'll I was going to try to include both, but that is too far. I will. And did you say, is there? So the obelisk toppled, but are there multiple obelisks here that some haven't toppled?
Not in Poverty Pond, no.
Okay, so just the one, and it toppled.
Yeah, there are smaller on the circumference of Paridar Common and a couple within Paridar Common. There are some of the smaller spires, but you can't see any other ones here.
Well, I'll just go up to this. I'll go up to the statue then, unless someone thinks of a. I don't think there's any advantageous, because I was going to collect maybe multiple interesting locations within 30 feet, but I don't believe that's possible. So I'm going to want to detect magic.
Yeah. Go ahead. Give us a, I think, occultism roll, please.
All right, and I'll put it in the just for.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is, this is a very good roll though. So what does it look like as you activate your detect magic cantrip?
Let's see. I think that I think he probably puts on his spectacles, since this is like, not a combat activity. Like it's more of a, he's taking a look at things. So he kind of puts on his, and then he sort of holds out his hands and then casts what probably looks like a shadow, like a light shadow over.
Okay, so
everything.
There's a shadow that briefly passes over this, and you look up. There is it would be hard to, it would be easy to overlook in this, but there is a very, very subtle spatial shift that is manifesting at the top of this. Almost like an eddy in the interplanar space. And it's manifesting as a visual distortion of the placement of the statue.
I pass that along.
So what do you say? Because now that you can see it with the magic, you're like, oh, of course. In the same way that like heat on a stone or on a road will distort the vision passing through it. In a similar way, magical disruptions can similarly cause just a alteration of your perception.
So not an illusion.
It's definitely not an illusion. No, this is almost like a very minor warping of the space. You've your recent experience with the Elder Order of the Endless Odyssey has told you there are realms beyond yours, occupied by all sorts of things. There's a presence of an otherworldly thing here. Something beyond this world that is very subtly shifting the perception, or perhaps even the space itself.
Very interesting. There seems to be, there is a magical conjunction here of some kind. I don't know the nature of it yet. I don't know if it's a gate or whether it's just a displacement because of the obelisk. And the fact that it'd be interesting, actually. I will want to do the same thing at the obelisks that have not toppled in the city, just to get a comparison, I think. But it's possible I get a similar reading from it. But
what you know is that
perhaps,
like they're almost always impervious to any kind of like this is something
Magic.
that's legendary. Even like the diviners from the College of Magic at Collingwood University. It's a mystery to these things, to what things on. So you may have just noticed something that no one else in the history of Paridar has noticed.
Of course, we can't know that it's not the statue, but certainly the inference I would think would be that it has to do with the obelisk. That this was the presence, that it sits in the location that the obelisk once was, and that the toppled portion is still here. But this is certainly this comes into play. How, I don't know.
Can you see it enough to like, poke something at it? Is it some sort of gateway or doorway to
It's
somewhere
definitely
else?
not. It is not a portal that's here. What it is more like. I'm trying to think of an analogy here. If you are.
Like a crack between the walls or something?
It's not even that. It's like if someone in a room away from you, from another room, say, makes noise, you're not going to be able to hear clearly what they're doing, but you can hear a distorted, muffled version of that.
So the border to the next realm is thinner in a way.
In that way, yeah, whatever is happening in that next room, as it were, it's affecting, in a very, very subtle way, whatever is happening in here. So it seems to be manifesting as a very, very minor visual distortion, making the statue look askew.
Do you think we could speak to the Professor Galberry?
Professor Galberry is he is in conjuration, so that would be like bringing things from other realms. If you want someone who is more a specialist in divination, I believe one of the vice deans in the Faculty of Divination, because that's Professor Morris Watsonful, the friend of Sir Archibald.
Very respectable position, that of Vice Dean, yeah.
It's definitely. He's not the dean, but I mean, and he is friendly with you all as well.
Maybe you would be
Yes.
able to assist us.
Yeah, getting more resources on this, I think, is a good idea, because this is quite a find. And of course, we don't know it's attached to the disappearances. It's just so, obviously, it's so circumspect that we'll have to try to-
Coincidence.
Shouldn't we just, maybe because Sally is so reluctant, but all this talking about the puddle of water, it's just, there is nothing in there, yeah? We are sure about that.
Yeah, it's right there. I sure am curious too, Basil.
Basil, would
Look,
you give us a perception check, please? I think Sally is standing at the shore with you. Or maybe she's used the excuse of them talking about the thing to go elsewhere. You're sitting back and kind of, no, but we're right here. Like the big pond is spreading out.
So I'm just going to be. Which of you two's going swimming then?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I would, no problem. So perception, that
Yeah,
is
yes,
you.
please. So you're sitting watching them, tapping your foot by the pond because, like, who knows what's beneath the surface of this thing? And you look over, and what you can see about, and again, like the edge of this place is all wild. It's not nicely groomed. Like there's a clear delineation of where the thing is. Trees grow in, and like bushes come up and whatnot. But in one of the overarching limbs of one of the larger trees, it's curious, because there are two birds, in comparison to you, fairly large ones, that are sitting there. And it's less, the fact that they see two things seem to be watching the statue as well is curious enough of itself. But what's more curious is it's not the same kind of bird. One of them is a raven, a really large black bird, and the other one, you would swear, is some kind of brown feathered owl. And they're almost like, they're not on top of one another, but they're close enough on the branch as if they were the same type of bird. You can see they seem to be observing your allies. Dr. Ursprung and Golag are exchanging excited, observations about this statue and explaining sort of the impact of it and theorizing what might be the cause of this visual distortion. What do you do?
So yeah, if I notice them, I think I would just walk over slowly to the spire and to the obelisk and just talk to the others, but without looking too much at the birds.
Sure. Why don't you give us a deception check, please?
Yes.
Let's see how well.
Yeah.
Yes. I also realized I forgot to give you guys your last hero point, but everyone's sitting on at least one right now, and we have 5 minutes left. So.
Yeah, that should do, maybe.
Oh, deception, sorry, I looked away when you rolled it. Yeah, so you are quite, maybe you take your monocle off and you're cleaning it as you walk up and just using the reflection to keep an eye on the birds. And you can see the owl's head kind of like turns towards you and is tracking you as you make your way up. What do you say as you walk up to your allies?
Yeah, so someone is watching us. You should not turn around right now, but there are 2 birds, an owl and a raven, sitting next to each other. Maybe they are magical creatures, maybe they are familiars of some, I don't know, some magic users. I don't really know, but they are investigating us while we are investigating this.
That is curious. I'm going to have my shadow do a shadow step if possible.
There's definitely shadows underneath those eaves, yeah. It does need to step into a shadow, but fortunately the looming form of Elwood, of bronze Elwood T. Eckhart, does cast a pretty long shadow, so you're able to casually step over to that, and then why don't you give us a stealth check for Golag's shadow?
All right. Haven't rolled off that sheet in a while. Let's see here. Stealth. Does he have skills on it?
He does, yeah, and I think stealth is one of them because he's got a pretty big
It
bonus.
makes sense. I just don't see it, so I'm like...
Let me take a look here. It is... skill right near the top.
Okay.
And then he has... let's see here.
Yes, I'm on it.
We also
Does he
shadow
have
step.
Does he have hero points?
He's one of your minions, so you can spend hero points on him.
I am going to spend a hero point on that.
Okay, sounds good. Nice.
That's better. That's better.
So it disappears, and where do you want it to appear in the shadows there? Like looking up at it? Do you want to appear in the trees?
Yeah, I think in the trees, in the shadow of the leaves.
Yeah.
He's not going to screw around with it. Like, he's going to get right up in there.
Yeah.
Put the shadow into play.
Yeah, and it's exactly as I described. So it's a big brown feathered owl. You think maybe it's a barn owl. It's got and there's this jet black raven sitting next to each other on this branch watching.
And no sounds.
They don't seem to be communicating to one another. They seem to just be watching.
Yes, I've stepped into the shadow of Elwood, just figuratively.
Yep.
And I'm looking up at it, and I say, yes, they're not communicating. They're just sitting there. It is curious, isn't it?
Basil, did you hear any mechanical noises? Is its head turned or anything? Is it some sort of spy creature?
You don't, from what you can tell, Golag. There's nothing unnatural. These appear to be birds, and like one of them shifts just a little bit on it, or like maybe the wind catches some of its feathers. They seem to be, as far as you can tell, living creatures. And Basil did see, in the reflection of his monocle, he did see it move and follow him. At least the owl did.
It seemed natural rather than a sort of mechanical sort of juddering.
Should we try to make contact with them?
Well, I'm just wondering, with recent situation, what happened to my clinic, I'm wondering if they're watching me or us as a group or someone in particular. I'm tempted to leave the park and see if it draws their attention or if they stay watching.
Yeah, good idea. Very good idea.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Osborne. Good thought.
So I shall sort of gesture a sort of wave to the others, and I'll summon Igor, and I'll start to walk out of the park via a different exit.
So with Dr. Earthsprung leaving the park, Golag's shadow cast up into the trees, and Sally trying her very best to avoid having to take a dip in this pond, I think that's where we'll have to bring our session to a close because we're out of time. So for those listening at home, thank you so much for joining us for part 2 of Ill Tidings at the Poverty Pond. We'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with our next session. And until then, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the session, the campaign, or the game we're playing, please do not hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll endeavor to reply in a timely fashion. In addition, there's a link down below to the Dungeon Musings Discord server where all of us are active, and we have channels dedicated to this. I can't remember if we got a channel specifically for this campaign. We definitely have one for Pathfinder 2. This campaign, every other campaign we run on the channel, as well as a bunch of other great channels, finding a group, finding information about virtual tabletops, or selecting between them information on different conventions. So lots of great people over there. You are more than welcome to join the wider Dungeon Musings community over there. In addition, there is a link down below to something called Heroes Save Villages. That's a charity fundraising campaign that we run on the channel. And from now until, I think it's July 26th, you have an opportunity for first off, any donations that go through that link go directly to SOS Children's Villages International. None of it goes to the channel or any other middleman. It just goes to help out the SOS Children's Villages International charity that benefits from our charitable activities. SOS Children's Villages International is a terrific organization active in over 130 countries, benefiting over 80,000 orphan and abandoned children, including, at the time of recording, ongoing relief efforts in Ukraine and the surrounding regions. There is also, for one way of saying thank you to generous donors is for every $25 that you donate, you'll get one chance to win the grand prize or one of the other great prizes in our next charity raffle. The next charity raffle will be in December of 2022, but if you want to see what was awarded in the last charity raffle, you can take a look at the Charity Initiatives channel on the Dungeon Musings Discord server. You can find a link to that in the description of this video. You can also find, while you're over there, if you've donated since June 15th, or if you're donating up until July 26th, you can have a say in helping to shape our next session. Our next charity session will be on Friday, August 6th, and it is being called, it will be with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I didn't load it up, but it's going to be called Stellar Revolt. It is another, like our Spires of Paridar campaign, it's a custom space opera, sorcery, Star Wars meets Flash Gordon meets Buck Rogers meets Spelljammer, kind of planetary romance mashup. And there are ways that the donors can spend the money that they donate to help shape the characters that might be played in there. So far, Darren has added one member of our stalwart crew through his generosity, and will be adding a riff on Chewbacca to the crew, and he has also donated to help make things more interesting for our heroes. There are options not only to select an iconic sci-fi character for us to take a riff on in the world of Stellar Revolt. There's also options to help equip our heroes with the gear and the narrative metacurrency that they'll need to survive, or to just make things more difficult. That is what Darren has chosen to do for one of them. So some great options over there. We're looking forward to that session. If you're enjoying our Spires of Paridar campaign, it will be a Pathfinder 2nd Edition game, very much like this, but in a very, very different setting. Much more, I'm really looking forward to that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. In addition, that's whatever donations you make will still also give you the chance to win stuff in our next charity raffle. The last thing I will say is a huge thank you to our stalwart illuminators. So, Sean, James, Ingolf, and Darren, thank you so much for joining me back in the streets of Paridar. It never feels like we have enough time in these sessions. Maybe I should stop yapping about Canadian content before and just get to the session next time. But for those listening at home, thank you so much for joining us for the most recent mystery of the Spires of Paridar. We'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. Until then, we hope that we gave you a couple of hours to take your mind off of the trouble of our world and think about the troubles that our stalwart illuminators are investigating under the Spires of Paridar. And until we see you again, stay safe, stay healthy, and happy gaming.